I'm going to hear myself twice.
Yeah, and they're going to hear you now, Sammy. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Round the Table. With me today, I've got lovely Sam Chaos and the always gorgeous Jenny Morgan. Hey, how are you both?
I'm
All right.
doing pretty good.
That's good.
But you gotta stop lying like that.
We gotta-
Gorgeous, are you kidding? Get real.
We got a few people in chat. Hi to Ring and to Ian Davenport, and I'm assuming there's a couple more people lurking, haven't said anything yet, and hi to you guys as well. This is an impromptu roundtable discussion stream, mostly because Dave's not doing critical questions today. We may take some questions from the floor, but it's not going to be like a Stump Jen. It's just going to be in general answering to things, because I'm going to bring up an issue that happened yesterday for people in the UK, in that there was a court case, and this court case was about transphobes trying to stop medical intervention for children. So their entire plan was to stop children from being able to get puberty blockers when they start puberty. Which I'm sure there's going to be a few people who go, "Oh, that's a good thing, stopping that, because we should medicalize students, kids, children." There's two sides to that. One is that puberty blockers, all they do is delay puberty, and they've been used for 30 plus years for children with early puberty. So using them in trans kids to delay puberty up until the kids are a little bit older is not considered dangerous by the medical fraternity. But there's a worse and more insidious thing about this, is that the method that they used to argue against it was basically to go against an earlier ruling that was made called Gillock. I think that's how you pronounce it, where it was shown in that proceeding that younger children can have the mental acumen to make medical decisions for themselves. And basically what this court case has done has turned over that decision and said children do not have the mental acumen to make medical decisions for themselves. Decisions can only be made with parental approval.
Tavistock's not going to like that.
No. This is a bad thing, because there are lots of children who rely on that original decision. For example, teens whose family might be Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're in an accident, they need a blood transfusion. The kid goes, "Give me a blood transfusion," and the doctors go, "Well, they're capable of making that decision for themselves, kid, then the blood transfusion." That will not be possible anymore. The only way an individual kid who's pre-16, so at 16 it changes, they've decided that 16 is the cutoff point for you to be mentally capable, apparently. The only way that these kids can have a decision which allows them to do it is individually go to court and prove their own capability in court. Now, if you're someone who's dying in a hospital and you need a treatment that your parents won't let you have for whatever reasons, usually religious, or just because your parents are stupid, going to court, you may not have time to do that before you're dead. So this court decision flies in the face of basically everything. And
So,
Well, it's just another in the long line of situations where you have the right wingers choosing to place themselves above everyone else and feel that it is their right to control everyone else's lives.
yeah,
It happens
I mean, this
there, it happens in America.
is
It
the
happens
same
wherever
thing
there's
as the
conservatives.
this is the same sort of fights that they do for trying to stop abortion and things like that. And yeah,
Sure, exactly.
Here's the interesting thing. In that case, they're fighting for the rights of a child, but in this case, they want to remove rights from the child. Be consistent, you pricks. Basically.
Something that this will potentially then cause is that it's going to leave at least a few doctors in situations where they either have to let a child die or overlook some paperwork and potentially get fired.
Yes, this is exactly what's going to happen from this. There are going to be thousands of kids who die because of this decision, and not just trans kids. This is a problem with it. The other thing is the court case. The judge did not allow any medical professionals who worked in the field of trans children or trans children themselves to talk at the court case. However,
oh God, that is so inappropriate.
However, they did allow anti-trans groups like Women's Place UK to talk at the court case.
Well, then, Sam, you guys got a judge you need to get out of office.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Tell me about it.
Now, here is a...
Jeff wants a link. Hang on a second. You guys keep talking. I will send Jeff the link.
Here is a fun thing, though, is that they discuss informed consent as the reason. However, kids are able to make bigger decisions for themselves all the time. If you take puberty blockers and you stop taking puberty blockers, you just undergo puberty. And the only negative side effect I've been able to find in any study is potentially a calcium deficiency after a while. But you can just take supplements.
Yes, exactly. And that,
So
I mean,
it's a big
that's
deal.
the thing, isn't it?
No, the problem with getting puberty blockers is that you get to have freedom of your life and bodily autonomy, and that's something that the conservatives think is absolutely against the Bible and every moral fiber of their upbringing. Even though it's not, it's entirely their own compulsion to rule over other people. You can't explain it any other way.
Yeah, I mean, well, no, that and their actual inbuilt hatred for all things LGBT, basically.
Also, the fact that they are terrified of anything that they don't understand, and they understand very little.
Well,
they don't even understand their own book, most of them.
They're willfully ignorant. They choose not to learn and understand.
Yes, willful ignorance. It is definitely that. Hi, Jeff. Did I pronounce that thing right before the Gillock decision? Do you know about that?
Gillock?
Yeah, I think that's how it's spelled.
I think I'd pronounce that Gillock.
Gillock. It was about the autonomous rights of children to make medical decisions and other decisions for themselves.
Okay, sorry, I'm sort of catching up here. So
okay, basically a decision that's happened in the courts in the UK yesterday for you guys, as more or less a bit from. And this is from the avenue of transphobes trying to fight to stop trans kids from having medical help.
All right.
They have basically overturned that Gillock decision. So now, like, if you have a kid in hospital who needs a blood transfusion and say their parents are Jehovah's Witnesses, that kid cannot make the decision for themselves to have a blood transfusion.
Oh, fuck's sake.
Yeah, they have in their efforts to fuck over trans people, they have fucked over hundreds and hundreds of kids.
I'm unfamiliar with the court system of England and its process. Is there a next court level that they can take this to?
Yeah, apparently it is going to be appealed. However, there's been a few lawyers on the part of some of the trans organisations who said it's going to be very hard in the current political climate to overturn this decision. Now that it's been made,
they should get a hold of America's Charles Strangio, who was the guy who took the labor discrimination rights to the Supreme Court. He's a trans man himself, and put together an argument that was so solid, everybody knew going in that it was going to pass through the Supreme Court.
Yeah. I think it's the High Court in the UK. I think is kind of like our equivalent of the Supreme, the
Yeah.
Cool.
That's the, I
So,
think
so
that's
this
how
decision was made one court down from the top part of the High Court.
Yeah.
So it can be appealed, but it will unlikely get overturned at the appeal. So it will probably come down to legislation, which is not going to happen under the current Tory party.
Yeah,
So-
I'm trying to. I can't remember what the I can't quite remember exactly all the sort of layers within the court systems in the UK, because there's the Crown Courts and High Court, and so
Well, in case any of them are listening, which of course I am not.
No, Microraptor Scummer
dear-
is not trans, but he is cute.
Dear higher level judges, grow the fuck up and realize this is not the 1800s anymore.
Yeah.
I'm the only cis-het white man here, or so.
Yeah, you're the only cis het person here.
You're
Yeah.
the only cis person here.
You're the token cis het person.
I'm the token.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to feel about that. I'm not. You know?
Dave is the straight friend. Jeff is the
As I was saying before you came in, Jeff, the judge decided during this case to not allow any doctors who were working in the field of trans children or any trans children themselves to speak before the court.
Do they allow parents?
I'm not sure if any parents did or not. It doesn't actually. I didn't get that out of the document.
It seems likely that they didn't.
Yeah, it does appear that they managed to get a judge who was incredibly conservative and had a preconceived idea of what they wanted to come.
They're linked to the news article about this. I'm just trying to get caught up.
Sorry, I grabbed it off Twitter today.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get caught up on this.
Yeah. I'll see. Where is it? I will grab it for you.
Oh,
have you found it?
No, but I found something else which has really disappointed me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, this is whatever we want to talk about, so go for it, Jeff.
Well, I was looking at this. Okay, I think I found it here. The High Court says. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they will frame it in the news that it's all about puberty blockers, but because of the way the decision was made, it overturns the Gillick decision. Then that's the problem.
Yeah, I was just seeing that this come up. First thing I found was nothing to do with this court case, but it's to do with cosmetics company called Lush. They donated to anti-trans pressure. I am disappointed in them because
to be fair to Lush,
so good on a lot of things. But
to be fair to Lush donate to an awful lot of organisations and don't always.
Yeah.
But so I don't think this was a case of transphobia on behalf of Lush, because Lush has donated to mermaids and other trans positive groups in the past. I think this was a case of they were donating to a women's group that they did not realise was anti-trans.
Stop talking over each other.
Sorry?
Stop talking over each other. What is this Lush decision about?
Oh, it's a decision that the company itself made. It's not a court decision. Lush is a company that sells bath and smelly products, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they made donations to Women's Place UK and LGBT Alliance.
We heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like they kind of maybe donated to these groups without realising what they were, which is.
I see.
Bad joke, harmonica man.
Well, yeah, I don't know that I would blame any company for getting duped by these people. They're maliciously trying to fake who they are and what they're about. It's just part of the conservative style. That lying is perfectly acceptable for their end game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, as far as Lush goes, I think it's more a case that they didn't vet who they were donating money to. They just donated it.
I mean, I remember because where I live, we had one of the sort of very first Lush stores was in the city I live in. Because they're actually based in a town called Bournemouth, which is just down about 20 miles from where I live, which is where they started. But So yeah, they've always had. I mean, they've always had a pretty good record of like supporting some pretty good groups. You know,
have they gotten on top of it and spoken about it at all?
Well, this stuff only came out yesterday, so they've not responded yet.
Okay.
They've admitted that they gave a grant. They have admitted that, but
yeah, they acknowledged the decision, but not made a statement on what they think of the decision yet.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's kind of par for the course for the UK lately to have this controversy around trans issues. It is an unfortunate thing. The worst part about this is most of the money that would have gone to the anti-trans groups who campaigned and actually stood up in the court, for them to be able to do that and to pay for the lawyers for this, would have come out of America from places like the Heritage Foundation. Because it's one of the largest contributors to those. Yeah, it is. It's one of those things that that right-wing conservative money that piles in the US gets distributed around the world to do as much damage as possible to regular people.
Yes, it is. The Bradley Foundation is another one. Yeah, that gets in on that.
Yeah, so it's kind of disgusting. But I'm particularly disgusted. I'm not so disgusted about Lush. I think the thing with Lush is they should have done due diligence and checked into who they were donating money to, and they should be held accountable for that.
Didn't this whole movement in the UK begin around 2018 when Bojo and those ilks get in to fuck with Brexit?
No, the TERF organisations have been around for a while. I mean, Julie Brindle's been spewing her crap for fucking years. So it's I don't think it's been a case of I don't think it's a case that it's a new thing.
Maybe she's been around, but she hasn't had the platform, and that's what really matters.
What's happened is the fear campaign they ran was against the GRA reforms in the UK. So when they were going to change the GRA to make it easier for trans people to change their birth certificates, that is all that was about, was changing birth certificates and making easier access to medical help.
Right.
That was to reduce waiting times and to help with getting birth certificate changes and stuff like that.
And it exploded from there. So that was really
so about 4 years ago. About 4 years ago is when they started the public hearings of that. Yeah, and the public hearings came out ultimately in positive of the reforms.
Yeah,
despite those, and the UK government chose to ignore it, and now we're going to do a whole new one. I'm like, yeah, if you didn't kick trans people enough before, you're going to kick them again now. You absolute scum. So,
just Tories for you.
I must say, when in 2015, when gay marriage was basically approved in the United States and really start to take a forceful lead around the entire planet. I never thought that when they decided that we were going to be their next target, that it would get this bad. It is positively frightening.
It is.
When you look at the whole worldwide dimension of it, like the behavior of Hungary, the kind of stuff that they've tried here in this country, what they're trying in your country,
I
the amount of money that is being put into it. These people are out to eliminate us. They physically want us exterminated.
Yeah, no, I agree, Jen. I want to point out to people how bad it has become, because because a lot of people who are in the community where there's positiveness towards trans people don't realize what it's like. Jen transitioned late 70s, early 80s, and I did in the early 2000s. Very early 2000s, actually. And then there's me I still think that when I transitioned in the early 2000s, it was safer, even though less people were aware of it, than it is now.
Yeah.
Because, and that is because of the hysteria that's been whipped up in the media and by anti-trans groups that that are basically, and yes, as Ring said, the channel punching bag for Ring's channel, which is J.K. Rowling, she who must not be named, that people like that John Cleese, for fuck's sake, these people, these celebrities standing up and talking out against trans people, the media pushing against trans people. Rupert Murdoch has a lot to fucking answer for. But it is basically because trans people became the next kicking bag. I mean, we know there were plans before gay marriage got through. The Christian right in the US were already deciding who their next target was going to be when they lost, and they chose it to be trans people. And the thought being that if we go back, we attack trans people, which should be an easier win for us, which is what they were thinking. We can then come back and attack gay people afterwards because we can bring parallels. You know,
they haven't. I mean, they haven't given up their. You know, I mean, this is the thing. They're kind of in retreat on gay people at the moment, and but as I said, now it's like, yeah, we'll go after trans people.
Yeah, pretty much.
The important thing to remember about their overall strategy, and they developed this about a decade ago, maybe a little more, that they know that they will lose when they take on many of these topics head on in the gross sense, in the overall global issue itself. In this particular cases, are trans people legitimate and should we be allowed to exist? But they go at it piece by piece. They nibble. They come from underneath. They get you when you're not watching. They use deception while they're doing something else, and they're trying to nibble away at a right or a situation, so that ultimately, when there's enough of a deterioration in that whole thing, they can say, "Well, look, the whole policy is crap, so just get rid of it," and it works. And it works.
This is why you have to be vigilant and fight against these people at every step of the way.
Yep.
Because they will come back from, if they win against trans people, they will come back to attack gays and lesbians.
Oh, it's guaranteed.
It is. Well, they already are. Look at places like LGBT Alliance, or we're going to get the tea out, and now they're already attacking the
people in America.
The gays and
people, you got to remember that this is a group of people that still has not learned to accept a Franklin Roosevelt and a little thing. It's called the Great. What the hell was the New Deal? Mm-hmm. And even you can even go back to them being upset and still trying to fight against policies that Teddy Roosevelt in the early 1900s established, which is what we call progressive politics today.
The religious right would like to
forget. They do not quit. They keep coming at you forever. Abortion is going to be that way. They're of course going at that all the time. Gay marriage is going to be that way. They're going to go at that. They're going to go after trans people. They want control of everything their way. Period.
Yeah, I mean the point about it is that
I wanted to answer something in the chat, Jen. Microraptor was asking what John Cleese did.
Okay, shall I? I'll go through it completely.
Okay, yeah.
John Cleese initially made a very bad taste joculation to the GRA reform, and he was called out for it. When he was called out for it, he doubled down and then went on a splurge about everybody in his list should go and support J.K. Rowling and that trans people have a mental illness. And then he proceeded to paste a whole heap of attack helicopter jokes.
Yeah.
He did this over several weeks. I mean, the man's in his 80s and he's not going to change, but this is the thing with celebrities not being responsible with the power they wield and not learning. So yeah,
this is just like about a week ago though. He signed an open letter sort of defending J.K. Rowling, didn't he? And and because of that statement, she said that that gender identity, quote, invalidates her experience as a cis woman.
Yep, that's pretty much what he did. Yeah,
which is complete bullshit. There is nothing that one person can do
to invalidate your existence.
It invalidates your existence. This is
what thing that pissed me off about John Cleese. Though this is what he said. He said, "quote, I'm not that interested in trans folks," and then he added, "I just hope they're happy and that people treated him kindly." He says, "Well, start treating them kindly, then, you fucking prick."
Yeah,
I think that there are precisely two things that you could argue that are good, that are coming out of some celebrities saying really shitty things. One, it's breaking down the idea of celebrity in the first place.
Yes.
A lot of people my age are significantly less interested in famous people.
Yeah, Me Too helped to do that as well.
Yeah, and then the second thing that it kind of does is it shows people it gives you something to show people that no, look, this is genuinely an issue. Where before it was a lot of microaggressions and stuff, and it wasn't anything you could actually demonstrate to them.
Yeah. To go back to the plan of the Conservatives of pushing through, that the thing you have to be aware of is if you're a cis-het person and you think this is not going to affect you eventually, just look at this current court case decision. This affects all kids. They don't care who they hurt in the process. They just want to destroy trans people. Once we've destroyed trans people, we can use our wins in that thing to destroy gay people. And once we destroy gay people, we can remove the right to vote from women and subdue women, because that's what the conservative rights actually want. They want a patriarchy. And I know people hate that word, but it is exactly what they're after. You look at some of the far right churches where where you'll have ministers who get up and say it's not rape if a husband forces himself on his wife. Now, this is the mentality of these people and women. What's her name? Who's the mother who gets up and belittles other says you got to be a demure and perfect woman.
Not a transformed wife.
Transform. Look at transformed wife.
Oh, Laurie Alexander.
She actually advocated that women shouldn't vote. And this is the mentality of this side. This is what they want to go back to living in the 1900s.
Earlier than that.
Earlier than that, probably, yeah. Well, they'd have to be earlier than that for Australia because we've never had the vote since. Well, no.
I'll tell you what. Has anyone seen the irony, though, of like her being on YouTube, being an influencer, and being very opinionated on these things when she actually thinks that women should basically shut up and do what they're told?
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm not actually seeing the irony in this.
Yeah, she's the person who says women shouldn't talk in church, and women should let the men do all the talking and do what they... Well, sit down and shut up then, bitch.
always realize that when they talk about a trans issue or a gay issue or an abortion issue, that they're not talking about that alone, that they are talking about the complete history of the people who are standing behind you, against you, and that their philosophy is completely religious based, and they want it to go back to pure fundamentalist Christian, and again be in control of everybody else's decisions. Yeah, that's what the Puritans, when they came to America, were interested. They weren't looking for religious. Well, actually,
that's exactly what this is.
They were looking for freedom to carry on their highly oppressive religion without the state standing in the way.
And it's
I would go on. Sorry, Jen.
Go, Sam.
I would like to refer back to the poem "First They Came."
Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And this is the thing. That is exactly it. You have to, if you want to still have a progressive society where we have more rights for more people and have a fairer society, you have to stand up for it at each stage of it. You can't just go, oh, I've got my rights, so fuck them. No, because if you let these people not get any rights or have rights removed from them, you will eventually lose your rights.
People assume that it can't regress.
But it does.
Yep.
I mean, Hungary is the perfect example of that.
Yep.
Hungary did this. Exactly what we've been talking about. They removed trans rights. Then they removed LGBT rights. And now they're removing women's rights. They are dialing it back.
Nazi Germany was not a liberal movement, okay?
And the TERFs in the UK and the Heritage Foundation and the Religious Right in America are all going, yay, Hungary, you guys are brilliant! Because they love this. This is exactly what they've been fighting for.
The thing with conservatives is that the less people vote, the more likely they are to get in.
Yes. That's why our conservatism in Australia isn't as bad as in some other countries, because we have compulsory voting. So our conservatives can't be quite as bad because they would never get elected.
It needs to change in the UK. The UK is damaging itself. There are what was it? I believe, was it Canada, who allowed people from the UK to emigrate because of the current trans treatment.
Possibly. That's not something I've heard about.
I thought I for sure heard that they allowed somebody in as a refugee from a country that was just like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, I did see that there's a couple of the turf organisations in the UK got. Well, it's a bit weird because do you know there was this sort of artistic statue supposed to represent Mary Wollstonecraft that's gone up, and it's really divided a lot of people.
I think it's beautiful, actually.
I think it's a bit of art. I think it's, but then you got a group called Object Now, who are both turf and swerfs as well. If you're familiar with that term.
These fuckers.
It claims it's against the objectification of women and women as a sex class, but so they have a blooming problem with it. So
I love how they. I love how they invent terms.
Let me remind people also that these are the same people. Ashcroft, remember Attorney General Ashcroft and how his wife had them put draperies and fabrics over a couple of statues that were in the Justice Department because they showed breasts. Okay, what kind of lunatics are we allowing to have platform and to create our laws? This is not growth and progress in humanity.
Didn't one of the popes order all the penises chiseled off the statues in the Vatican?
I hadn't heard that.
Yes, I've heard that one. Damn it! Give me a minute. I think it was actually called the Great Castration or something.
Wouldn't it be dreadful if you were one of those people who did the living statue thing and the guy came around and went...
Well, it'd be a little silly to see David
stand there and let them do it.
David with a muff, wouldn't it?
Right, sorry, I sidetracked that a bit. You made it worse, Jed.
try to visualize that.
Within the Vatican, though, it amuses me the imagery of women in there. Just like that. That's not how proportions work.
No, it's not. The other thing, I mean, refuting turf arguments.
Pius the Ninth in 1857.
1857.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous. Yeah, Mike. Somebody had the job of getting all the statues off. They had to go around and give all the statues a sex change. They probably took all the nipples off the women as well.
So yeah, could you argue that he was the first trans rights activist without even knowing it? That was a joke. People, please do not take that out of context.
You know, this comes forward to recent occurrences in the art world. The movie Cats. Many people are not aware that once the film was done and ready to be released, they held it back because they decided they needed to go in and digitally erase all the cats' anuses.
Oh, that's right, because they don't have it.
Yeah, and that's an absolutely true story, and they did.
I love it. It's brilliant.
If they could have just digitally erased the Andrew Lloyd Webber soundtrack, it would have been a really perfect movie.
I agree with that, but
it's not really his soundtrack anyway. I mean, he ripped so much stuff off. There's Lloyd Webber. To go back to what we were talking about with TERFs and trans trans rights. Their whole argument of trans women in toilets and changing rooms is just absolutely ridiculous, and it's so simple to debunk, because you go, oh, you're a trans woman, so you should be in the men's league. Okay, so where are you going to put the trans men? Because I guarantee you, every single one of your stupid ass arguments of if you allow trans women in, you're going to have ordinary men creep in and be dangerous to you, is way more probable if you're going to have trans men in the women's toilet. It's because it's very, very easy for a cis man to go, I'm a trans man, and walk in if you're going to do that. So there's no consistency in what they think anyway.
The easier way to debunk that is to show the articles and information that the organization who first came out with that argument admitted that it was complete deception and made up strictly because they thought it would be sensationalistic and get press. And it did.
And they didn't make it up for trans people anyway. They made it up for gay people originally.
No.
It was used.
No, this only happened within the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's a recycled one though. It was used for gay people too, Jim.
Yes, that argument was used in gay people that they lurk in public restrooms and stuff.
Yes,
but the crossover of gender and bathrooms was strictly recent.
Yeah, it was slightly different sort of stereotype it in a way, but I get the way it was almost the way that gay people were kind of characterized as predatory in a way that as well.
Yes,
I think it was more gay men than lesbians, but definitely a bit of both at least.
Microraptor.
Oh no, this stereotype. So go on, Jenny.
Your question is of course legitimate, but I propose that we never even ask that kind of question, because that gives credibility to an argument which was complete fabrication and bullshit from day one.
See, I
refuse to discuss that on that level, because it was just not true. That nothing had any truth to it. Why should I even discuss it?
Especially you follow up the Microraptor.
But remember, platform is credibility. If you get platform, you have automatic credibility.
Your two best arguments with them are always, well, what about trans men? And you realise your own organisation said that this was just made up to be sensationalised. It's not true. There is no statistics that support your idea that women are at more danger. Cis women are at more danger by allowing trans women in the list. But we can prove that trans women are in fuck tons of danger by having to go into the men's.
Yep. And I have a fun little fact about the argument I've heard that if you introduce trans women into prisons, then it will increase the R word statistics. I don't know if people here are bothered by that word, so I said it like that. But here's a fun little fact for you. Within British law, a woman cannot commit rape.
Yeah, it's nuts. Your
ridiculous.
laws are so old, and
it is absolutely ridiculous.
Hence, in a women's prison, the rape statistic is 0 until you introduce prison guards and trans women. So, of course, the statistic goes up because there's more inmates that can do it.
Yeah. And they go, oh, but women don't rape, but trans women do. Yeah, well, that's only because your law is fucked up. If you go to any other country that's not the UK that has proper laws, the statistics are the same.
I was not aware of that.
In
the UK, that is
Yeah.
The definition
really quite surprising.
The definition of rape
really
is putting
archaic.
The definition of rape in the UK is putting your biological penis inside of someone else without their consent.
Yes, and it has to be a penis. It has to be an actual penis. It cannot be another implement or a finger or anything like that.
So the worst women can get is sexual assaults.
Even then, it's hard to pin sexual assault on a woman because of the way the laws are written. In the UK, most of them just end up being as assault. So you get TERFs argue that women in the UK don't perform sexual assault, or very rarely. It's like, that's because your laws are fucked up.
Yeah, I had this conversation earlier today with someone on Facebook, and then and you know, it was because it was about the look, you know, the whole thing of you know, like boundaries work both ways here with men and women, and you know, because you know, there's someone you know, it's just a guy. I won't say who it is, but he is a creator in the community. But he said, look, he worked in the entertainment industry for a long time, and you know, can't say how many times he was groped by women without consent, and it made him very, you know, very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it happens
and
both
I
ways.
get that because if I get someone, you know, a woman trying to grope me, or you know, I find it uncomfortable. I find it fucking intimidating, and there is this kind of attitude. Oh, you're a guy, you're supposed to like it, and I'm like, no, I fucking don't. So,
yeah, I mean,
yeah, and it only applies when women do it to men. Interestingly, in no other combination does it apply.
Yeah,
and with non-binary people, it literally just depends if they're being read as female in the situation.
Yeah, and it's and sometimes it can be, and yeah, I mean, and this is the thing. This is what is it? Boundaries do work both ways on this. You know, it would be it.
So, are any of you guys familiar with the YouTuber Jammy Dodger? He's a trans guy.
No.
I was going to say, if he walked into a women's bathroom, people would freak the fuck out.
Yeah. And that's the thing, but they don't care about that side of it because all they want to ignore that trans men exist. They will lip service say, "Oh no, we treat them as women." But if they walked into their loos, they would kick them out. They would get somebody to beat them up or something.
Also, because you're not allowed to ask to see someone's genitals, you could lie and say that you are a trans man and just be a man and not have to dress up at all. In that case.
But let's face it, at the moment, the easiest way for a male predator, to get in a women's toilet is not to dress up and pretend they're a trans person. It's to pretend they're a janitor or you know, a security guard or something like that. Somebody who has authority to be in that place.
And you know what's even more hypocritical to me about this is that if they think that this is such an important issue, and that the worst crime in the world is having a trans person in a bathroom, why don't they have laws that actually address bathroom issues like these upskirt perverts who put digital video cameras on the ends of canes and things to look up women's skirts on stairways and in bathrooms and that sort of thing. There are not laws against that.
Yeah,
it is not against the law.
It's voyeurism, but yeah, you would only get a fine or something like that.
Well, but why do they not write a law against that?
I think it depends on where you are. I think some places laws would cover that, but in most places.
Yeah, I think pre-existing laws probably already cover that because there's rules about privacy in
that's
bathrooms.
The excuse they use, but it doesn't. Okay?
Yeah, it should actually have laws for it. I agree.
Here.
Invasion. It's an invasion of privacy.
It's supposed to cover it. Is the thing. I'm not. It doesn't actually cover it, but it's supposed to. Yeah. See, my biggest concern within the whole bathroom debate is where the fuck do I piss?
Well, you become a diaper fetish person. And,
Jen!
So, do you know what? I was to say, damn it, Jen, and it's not even aimed at Jen's little corner.
Yeah. Yeah, for once it was me.
Yeah.
So my solution happens to be that I am also disabled and as such use the disabled toilets, but still.
Yeah. I mean, that's... I personally don't necessarily have a problem with unisex toilets if they're built properly. If you build them all cubicles, you don't have a pissing trough for the guys. You just have you have all cubicles, and you have hand washing basins inside the cubicles so that people can wash their hands before they exit, and you have security cameras on the inside bit of the toilet. You can still have a big mirror and everything for anyone who wants to go and do their makeup and whatever else, but you have security cameras in the main area to protect people, but no security cameras obviously in the cubicles. All the cubicles can lock. Everyone feels safer because you've got security there looking out for it, and it doesn't matter whether
it'd just be a blimmin' improvement on toilets within public places in the UK if all cubicles would actually fucking lock right now. But yeah, hey ho, that's another conversation altogether.
I mean, at least I guess at least ours don't have massive fuck off holes in them, but still.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you don't have that, I don't. What's the problem? You have a disabled toilet. You can have a unisex toilet as well.
Yep.
Or you have multiple purpose and you have 2 disabled toilets, because a lot of places only have the one, and it's.
In America, they put the disabled stall in the standard bathroom.
Oh,
yeah, that happens here too, but not
unisex.
always. It depends on the more recent builds tend to have the disabled toilet separate from the other 2. So
that I haven't seen.
And they will allow they usually label it for disabled people and parents. So those big enough and parents can walk in with their kids.
Yeah.
I've seen those. They're called family bathrooms.
We get a mixture of that. Sometimes there's a separate, like unisex disabled toilet, or there's sometimes separate cubicles within the existing toilet. So generally, because generally the disabled one generally also doubles up as like a baby changing sort of area as well.
Now, I've only seen this a couple of times, but I have actually seen places where the baby change is only in the women's.
Yeah, we got a couple of those too. Which is it's not good rare, if there's a dad looking after their kid.
It's not good, but be realistic. How many men actually will do that if their wife is around?
See, single fathers like mine.
I'm not denying that there's lots of men who would happily do that. But if you look at the actual percentage, if the husband and wife are both there, it's gonna go to the wife. The society has not changed.
No.
Well, yeah, I'm more commenting on people who don't have a wife, so the man has to do it, and because of that, that's awkward because they don't then have anywhere to change the baby because they're not allowed in the women's room.
Right. Again, I'm not denying their existence at all, but
yeah, it was more of a comment on the fact that it's literally in some places my dad wouldn't be allowed to change a baby, despite the fact that he's a single parent.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts that they I mean, it's usually that's in older facilities too, though.
Another interesting paradox or fallacy of Western culture is we will in that situation allow a man to change a baby, say on a park bench, okay, because there's no other facility for them to do that, but they won't let the mother breastfeed. So the double standards are just everywhere.
See, the thing about that is all those conservatives are worried. All those male conservatives are worried because they're all sexually repressed, and if they see a tit, they're just going to go mental and rape everyone.
They probably will.
This stream's going to get taken down.
I mean, I don't understand people, I guess, like that's with that sort of stuff. It's just like, but you could just like do healthy sexual things and you'd be fine.
Yeah, but they don't, do they? That they're all sexually repressed. All those Christian right idiots. It's why they think that they have to, force themselves on their wives and things like that. Because
I mean, even like a lot of like liberal Christians I know, and even like atheists I know, have the attitude that they're not supposed to talk about sex, and if they want to have sex, that's a bad thing, and all this puritanical shit. So then they're ashamed about watching porn, and if they do it more than like once a week or some shit, they think it's an addiction.
Yeah.
It's not of course just a UK or an American issue. It's a global issue. Human beings are completely hung up about sex. There are very few places in the world where it is considered normative to discuss sex, to present sex, to show a breast, and I'm talking mostly Western nations, of course.
See, breasts aren't even sexualized in all countries. That's just a Western thing.
But for the majority of the planet, they are. I mean, there's definitely cultures where nobody cares, but that's what we should be seeking, not exceptionalizing them. No, we're not going to have a situation in America where women are going to go to the office where they work topless. It's just not going to happen. Okay, no shirt, no shoes, no service. It's still a law. So people are just too hung up about sex. It bothers them so much. You talk dirty and people are embarrassed. The language that we ban words, for Christ's sake. We ban words.
That's that thing of cancel culture as well, where which is something I get the point of cancel culture to a certain extent, but we have to be very, very careful with cancel culture, because you can go to that extreme where you're we end up. Cancel culture can become a left problem in the same way that what the right is trying to do with removing rights from people is. In that, the more that we try to remove other people's rights to say things that are horrible, the more we're actually going to be able to restrict our own ways of combating bad ideas. Because to combat a bad idea, that bad idea has to be voiced. If it's kept underground, you don't get a chance to fight against it.
Well, exactly, and that's one of the things that is happening with. Well, it's kind of a function. Believe it or not, it's a paradoxical function of tolerance. The more tolerant you are, the less tolerant you become, because you become tolerant of the negative forces that you're trying to be tolerant of. So they gain more power and can therefore be less tolerant of you.
Yeah, the tolerance paradox is a thing.
It's finding that balance.
Intolerance of intolerance is not in and of itself intolerance.
No. But you have to find a balance of that, where you're still allowing a voice to people who have bad ideas, whilst being able to stop the conversation to go into dangerous areas.
I think you need to let them have a voice, but I don't think you need to give them a voice.
Yes.
Well,
not every bad idea deserves to be heavily platformed.
I've been saying this for a long, long time, that the media is responsible for the misplatforming of all kinds of voices that are legitimate, but still misplatformed. Just because you're a legitimate voice doesn't mean that you're a majority voice or a rational voice. And to present those people on a platform and to therefore give them credibility that they are rational, that they are valid as much as a legitimate scientific opinion, for example, is insane. It's just insane to promote misinformation and call it legitimate.
I heard someone say literally yesterday that there are good arguments on both sides, they think.
Oh!
They were referring to both young and old Earths.
No. I'd like to call back to I'd like to bring up an UK comedian, Dara O'Brien, who made a point in one of his stand-ups where he's talking about people who pull their own teeth, and how they were, how there was this glut of people because they didn't want to go to the dentist and spend the time at the dentist for doing the old door string and pulling teeth out. thing, and it got so bad that it was actually on the news. So they had a doctor dentist in this dentist goes, "I am a dentist, and I wouldn't pull my own teeth." So, but then he went on to it, and he goes, and the way that the media works now, I almost expected them to turn to somebody and say, "This is a toothologist." And we'll have his opinion. And they just talked to Joe Blow from down the street, who goes, yes, I pulled out my own teeth using a piece of twine on my bathroom door. You know, he's, yes, this is a good idea. So he basically made a joke out of it.
It's like that old Simpsons joke, isn't it? Where it was actually, the PhD in truthology from Christian Tech.
Yeah.
And I swear that they were loosely basing that character on Kent Hovind.
Oh, it was so Kent Hovind-ish, wasn't it?
That would not surprise me.
That was so Kent Hovind.
It was just yeah. But yeah. So I mean, this is part of the problem we have. Like, I mean, that goes back to that court case. I mean, the court case brought in a transphobic organization. Doctors who didn't really know what they were talking about because they'd never dealt with trans kids at all, and some of them were bigoted themselves, and made a decision without actually talking to the actual fucking experts. I mean,
this is
how do you justify that in any way, shape, or form?
I want to know what the fuck ruling in the court allowed them to not consult Tavistock.
Yeah.
On trans issues for kids. That's literally the trans issues for kids clinic.
Yeah, Tavistock never was consulted. It was like, you are.
I'll be back in 2 minutes.
No worries.
No worries.
Yeah. Yes, Neil. I'm not a dentist, but I'll pull your teeth out. But yeah, it's the problem that we have at the moment. In that, where do we draw that line in what speech do you have to censor, and what do you allow through? What do you make sure doesn't get a platform? I mean, obviously, if people are yelling hate speech or inciting violence and things like that, that's the kind of stuff that I think most people would agree is beyond the pale, and you've got to try and put a stop to.
I think it's depending on the argument, I think will change how you make that determination.
Yes.
There are clearly some arguments that, like the Supreme Court of the United States said back in, what was it, 50s, 60s, when they were making some determinations about pornography, they said, I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it. That there are certain arguments. Well, you think about that. That's a perfectly legitimate thing. How do you define pornography? But you do know what it is when you see it. Whether or not it's bad or should be banned is another issue. But you know it when you see it, right?
So this is okay. Now I have a thing against modern English for this reason. Like I would argue that modern English is objectively worse than Old English, simply because in Old English it was easier to create new words for specific concepts, such that each word was more true to its own concept.
Well, they didn't have very many words back then, they're kind of like, no, just kidding.
Oh, Ring just said, technically everybody's an expert.
One way to look at it.
Yeah, he's right.
Technically, pretty much everyone is also a layperson. They do that quite a lot.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah. The number of times you'll have discussions about you'll see discussions about things on TV shows. Oh, my words are not working tonight. You'll see discussions about things on TV shows, current affairs type programs, and they'll bring in a layperson to talk about something like their opinion has more weight than this group of scientists who've been studying this thing for 10 fucking years. It's like, No.
I'm tired of courts making far-reaching cultural decisions based on anecdotal evidence or anecdotal cases.
Yeah.
It's just completely inappropriate, and they
Yep.
need to understand. And I'm sure many judges do understand their role in these decisions, but good Lord, we have to change our system. We cannot allow what just happened in the last 4 years of all these sycophants being named judges because they will go along with the party line, and instead of being actually qualified, like this bitch Amy Comey or whatever her name is in the Supreme Court today.
See, I would much prefer Supreme Court judges should have terms and not for their natural life.
Yeah.
So if you appoint a judge, they get 4 years. If they do a good job, the next government can reappoint them, or they can appoint somebody else. Yes, so you'll still have political appointments, but at least the judges rotate.
I'm of the opinion that judges on, for example, I'll use SCOTUS because it's what we've been discussing, should have term limits, but that the term limits should be longer than the president's, and that the numbers shouldn't fit in with the number of years that a president is in term.
Yeah, so if you did 6 years,
I would like to say, I think a Supreme Court judge in the United States should be like a 10-year term, and then after that, if they're renamed, it should only be a 5-year term. Because we're still talking about
the max,
their ability to affect generations of humans, not just their own.
Yes. Yeah,
and it has to be limited. The world changes, people change.
Or even if you said 6 years, 2 6-year terms, then it would never double overlap with a presidential election.
Yeah.
If you're running even numbers, yes, it will at some point.
At some point, it does. Yes, I guess.
The issue is that structurally,
but only every now and then.
Structurally, both the UK and the US systems, and honestly every system I've ever seen, but I'll pick on those two. They're both poor, and they both have better points than the other. But that's not saying an awful lot. And because both of the systems are designed shittily, of course they're going to run shittily.
Yeah.
And I don't blame politicians of the past for having designed the systems, because they didn't have experience to suggest what would and wouldn't work. They didn't have past models to go on. But we do, and now we can look back and go, okay, no, these bits were good and these bits were bad, and we fucked up which bits we thought were good and bad in the past.
Yeah.
Neither system is perfect. In the state of Wisconsin, the Supreme Court judges are elected, and I think it's a 10-year term. And right now, Wisconsin's court
would that not be circuit court rather than? Would that not be circuit rather than?
No, the Supreme Court has been so badly manipulated by corporate money that it is completely conservative, and it's going to be that way for however long this chain of judges are able to hold their majority, their conservative majority. And I'm afraid it's going to be a long time, because there's some very young people on that court now.
Maybe they should always be appointed by a bipartisan committee.
Well, as to who's allowed to run,
yeah,
maybe there needs to be a blending of the two systems. I don't know.
So you vet the candidates who can run, and then you have
I'm not in this party or that party. Bullshit, you're not. You're not a paid member, but you know damn well you are.
Yeah. So
quit lying to us.
If you had a bipartisan committee that vetted and said that these particular judges are the ones that you're going to vote on, that could maybe make it work better. What was it? Ox said politics need a cut-off age, because most of them are old bastards and are brain dead after 70. I agree. Everybody else has to retire at a certain age, so should politicians.
Yeah, well, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was not a brain dead person.
No, but not everybody over that age. I'm not saying people over that age are all brain dead. But I honestly think there's a retirement. There are retirement ages for people for a reason. Judges and politicians should have to abide by them too. So somebody who's over 70 probably shouldn't be running for president. I realise that would.
Yeah.
We've had plenty of MPs that are over that age. You know, although I've got to be said, because unfortunately he lost his seat. Do miss Dennis Skinner in the House of Commons now. he was in his 80s. He's in his 80s.
See, I feel like there should be some sort of mental acuity test before you take any significant position of power.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't necessarily say be ageist, but I think there's definitely has to be, some sort of, because I'd sooner that, because that should apply to all age where you were actually fit to hold a public office.
Yeah.
Yep. Can we answer Cindy Plaza's question? Statement.
Let's be honest. If there was any decent test around that, I'm sure the last 4 years wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Sam and Jeff, I'm unfamiliar. Is your House of Lords appointed, or are they on some
the House of Lords
level royal?
Okay, that's,
entitlement
the House of Lords, you can apply to join them, but I don't think that's happened in years and years.
Yeah.
It is, but once you've got a House of Lords title, either your next of kin or whoever you leave it to inherits the title. So it's a bunch of family lines.
Yeah, it's peerage.
I don't know necessarily everyone who gets a peerage becomes hereditary.
Yeah,
there are
non-hereditary peerages, Sam. Yeah.
Yeah, there are.
There are.
There are
just most of. I think however many hundred of them. I think 150 are hereditary, which is still a significant portion of them.
And any of them can show up.
Sounds like that needs to change.
Oh, it's an absolute. It's like it's a legacy of bloody feudalism. It really is.
It is draconian, frankly.
It's ridiculous. You've got I was just saying, unlike there's members of I was saying, you can have generally they're either appointed or some. You've got people who held the title because their families, aristocracy. And then there's 26 seats that are held by the Church of England.
Yeah.
I just received notice that the Urban Dictionary's word of the day is "fuck Donald Trump."
Donald Trump as a word.
There's also such a word as a saying, isn't it? But
Cindy Plaza made a comment that the US needs more than two parties because the two parties are the death of democracy. The problem you have in the US is because you basically have a first past the post system which doesn't have compulsory voting. Minor parties are never going to get up because they're just not going to get enough of that vote to get in. If you had a preferential system where people's second votes counts, then you've probably got more chance of a minor party. Well, because minor parties do occasionally get people elected in Australia, and we have a preferential system. There are other systems that even work better.
Rather than the Australian preferential system, I would prefer the French ranked system.
Yeah, like I said, there are other systems that work too. A good start for it would be compulsory voting, though.
It would be better.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be good, but it would be better.
I said a good start.
Yeah. A couple of my big things in politics are structures and voting systems, and the fact that all of them feel really shit, the ones that we have.
And Australia doesn't have a peerage. There is an Order of Australia where you can become a Knight of Australia, but they don't confer the title Sir or anything like that anymore. And it's not a peerage. It's not a thing for life. It's just for the individual. And and that doesn't give you any political power at all because our Senate, like our House of Representatives, is voted on like it is in the US, except that our voting is compulsory, and we have preferential voting.
Isn't there sort of like sort of governments like for like states like New South Wales or whatever as well, isn't there?
Yes, there is a lower house and upper house in all the states as well, and and they're all voted on. None of them are appointed, so you just
because you got the state ones, and you've got like a federal. Is that correct?
We got state governments and federal governments.
Yeah, because
local government.
Because Chris ran for federal government, didn't he? Once he didn't get it, but
he's also run. I think he's also run for a local seat as well. Because he's run for both the Libs and for the Palmer United Party. If you want to know what Palmer United Party is, Australia's version of UKIP.
I think he's a little bit. I think he's a little bit like embarrassed about that now.
He is very embarrassed about that. Yeah, because he was basically running for UKIP. Australia's version of UKIP.
Yeah.
I mean, Palmer is our Trump, basically. Palmer is, although Palmer is actually a successful businessman, unlike Trump. But Palmer's whole idea of creating the Palmer United Party was to serve his own personal interests in business. That was all it was.
See, much as I have a lot of gripes with the American system, I think that the way they elect a president rather than the party with the most people having something like our prime minister, I think that system works better. I don't think prime minister or president, the label really matters, but I think the method by which they get there is better in the US than in the UK.
It has to be the way our Constitution's written. It's required.
But it was written partially that way because they didn't like the British prime minister system.
Right. Yeah. It's required to have 3 separate houses with supposed checks and balances of each other until you get a president who loads the judicial with his sycophants.
There are a couple of major problems with your US system. One, I mean, I prefer a system which has compulsory voting because I think everybody should exercise their right to vote, but some people don't like forcing compulsory voting, and that's fine. But the biggest problem you guys have is your electoral college, because it's just crazy.
The electoral college.
Yeah, I guess it kind of made sense back when they did it, but I don't see any problem with having the president.
I grew up here and took U.S. history twice in primary school. I still don't understand what the electoral college is supposed to accomplish.
The point at the time was because you're talking about a time when there was voting and the states would run their votings independently and they'd have to get all their votes together and figure it all out. This all took a long time, not just a bit like this election in the US, but for different reasons. And then you couldn't just send all of those votes to Washington to decide who was going to be the president. So each state then voted for its electoral college. The electoral college voted, and then you only got a handful of votes from that state, and they were sent. And the idea was to make it simpler and easier and all around. Except the entire system is corrupt as hell now, especially with the way gerrymandering works in the US. So
the way it was built, and the reason to have the electoral college in the first place, was purely and simply the size of the US,
the logistics of it.
Because, and that's why they don't just say the electoral college meet as soon as all the votes are counted, because they had to be sure that someone's horse didn't die on the way or something, so they were just late.
The excuse we keep hearing here for the electoral college is that it was designed to balance out the power of a big state versus a little state, but they don't define is that square footage or population. It seems to indicate population, but
it's never been updated. Yeah. That's part of the problem. So you've got
if it's a population, then there's still going to be smaller states that are more powerful than bigger states, and it doesn't work that way either.
Oh no, the representational voting is way off in the US because of that.
No. The electoral college gives more power to smaller states.
Yes,
I mean the thing I think ultimately
See, I don't see that.
to
I don't see that because the number of electors they're given are based on their population. Rhode
Plus two,
Island.
meaning that proportionally that 2 is more for smaller states.
That's what we all. I mean, that's what I think all states need. Need is proportional representation.
Yes.
Is that is the. I mean, now okay, I could probably argue. For me personally, the sort of parties I supported, that it would have been bad a few years ago because if you had had proportional representation, like UKIP would have got like 25, 26 seats, but it would have been a lot more. I mean, actually, it would have been more democratic than what we currently have now. With we have the first past the post system.
Yeah, I don't like first past the post at all.
Well, I know we talked about this on a couple of streams, and we had the referendum on what you've got, the alternative voting thing.
Yeah,
that got absolutely absolutely smashed in the referendum.
Didn't they run basically a campaign of this is a trick to get UKIP in or some shit?
This was the Liberal Democrats who wanted this, and I mean, to be honest, let's think about it. Most people voting for going to vote for one of the two main parties, right? Who's likely to be their alternative in most cases? Is going to be the Liberal. So I think there was a lot of suspicion of the Liberal Democrats' motives for this, and people, and a lot of it, I've got to say, is it didn't. The issue itself, I think, got drowned in the fact that a lot of people were angry with the Liberal Democrat parts in sort of not long after 2010, 2011, because the people who voted for them did not want them in a coalition with the bloody Tories.
Yep.
Because we had that Liberal Conservative coalition, didn't we, for 5 years?
God.
Yeah.
Well, America was not designed as a two-party country constitutionally. In fact, a number of the founding fathers spoke about a party representative government as being that it would ultimately be the end of our democracy, and it seems to be going that direction.
Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, because I mean, Britain at the time very much was a two-party system.
Yep.
And you could probably argue that it kind of is now effectively, although
whoever the prime minister is going to be Labour or Tory.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time as say like when the United States happened, you had the Tories and the Whigs, and I mean the Whigs were for like almost 100 years. The Tories didn't get in. They did not get. I mean, we don't call Liberals Whigs now, but Conservatives are still called Tories to this day. But it was very much a two-party system until like 1900, whatever it was, that the Labour Party was established. And now that, of course, what's happened over the years then is that over the next 20 or 30 years, the Liberal Party, the old Liberal Party, fell into just political irrelevance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sort of, I mean, the old Liberal Party was sort of disbanded in, I think it was 88 or 89, and that they merged with a group called the SDP, the Social Democratic Party, to form the Liberal Democrats.
Can I ask a question about American politics? What is this thing about having to register to a party? Wait, you say you muted, Jen.
Jenny, you're muted.
You muted.
It's up to the states whether or not they demand that. In some states, you're required to declare a party when you register to vote.
That's crazy.
You're completely open to what party you vote, but that includes not just Republican or Democrat, but independent. That you can vote as that. Now in some states then they use that party affiliation as a restriction on your primary voting abilities. In states that do say you register as a Democrat, you are only allowed to vote for Democratic candidates. It's an attempt to
stifle
stifle that manipulative voting. That let's all go in and vote for the worst possible.
That is
Republican.
ridiculous. That totally undermines the idea of a democracy. Everybody should be able to swing their vote if they need to.
Well, in the general election, you're allowed to. I can vote for Donald Trump as president and everybody else a Democrat if I want, or I can.
It's just when you're voting for who's going to run as the president.
It's strictly for the primaries. What Americans don't realize is that the primaries are run not by the state, not by the government, but by the parties.
Yeah,
it's their election, not the state's election.
That's frustrating to me that I know this shit, but I'm quickly learning that I appear to know now more about how the system is set up in America than some of the Americans I speak to on a regular basis. Which that either says something about my ability to fall down a rabbit hole or the education.
I mean, ultimately, what I would my ultimate thing would be a direct democracy. Would be what I ultimately like, but
we would have to accept that digital voting worked.
Yeah, I think that would be ultimately where I would like to get. Mind you, I mean, ultimately, I'd like to get to a blooming socialist state with direct democracy as well. But but obviously looking at it realistically, it looks like we're kind of stuck with representative democracy. So a lot of the time it's trying to improve that system, that current system. Even though I actually ultimately think that these current systems, they're not overly set up to be reformed that much.
Yeah.
No, and the American one says it is. It's not.
We have to have a republic in America, not a true democracy, because there is just no way that we can have 350 million people vote on every damn thing that comes through Congress. Not only because of the logistics of casting the vote, although that's becoming much more possible today in the digital electronics age, but there is no way that I'm going to put my faith in half the people I know to make a wise decision about something that is science-based or culturally based or has something to do with ending bigotry or things like that.
I realize there is something your forefathers, the forefathers in the US actually said. We actually need a representative parliament because people are stupid.
The thing is,
that's the nature of the republic. In a republic, the person is voting as a representative of you, but they vote the way they believe they should cast their vote.
That's what they're meant to do. Well, one of the things that I think would help in Parliament to help with this would be we vote secretly when we vote for the people we're voting for to go into Parliament. They should vote secretly in Parliament on issues.
See, I think though, if every nation had direct democracies, actually, technically, the nation states as we understand them probably wouldn't exist in the same way. I mean, you'd have how many people would you have in certain areas voting to secede from whatever state they're in? It'd be interesting.
Well, that would definitely happen in my state. It has happened in my state. Western Australia voted in the 1950s to secede from the rest of Australia. And they sent it passed as a complete referendum. It was sent to the UK to be ratified because at that point that was the only way we thought we could do it. The UK sent it back and said, there is nothing we can do to help you do it. You're going to have to go through the Australian courts. And the court said, there's nothing in the Constitution that allows the state to secede. Yeah. You'd actually have to go to war.
Yeah.
See, in the United States, I don't know if they actually ended up putting it into the Constitution. But one thing the Constitution does say is that if a particular issue is not covered by the Constitution, the benefit of the doubt goes to the state. And so theoretically, a state, unless it's been put in the Constitution, so theoretically a state could secede. Like Texas is always threatening to secede until, of course, they need federal assistance for a hurricane.
It actually, I think, does say in the Constitution that there is no seceding. And
it may be. I'm just, I'm not a constitutional expert. I don't memorize.
Well, Texas is quite unique because it was its own. It was its own independent nation for a brief period of time.
Yes, the thing with Texas is that Texas actively had to have it written into their constitution that they would be allowed to secede.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what their constitution says is different than what the federal constitution says. Each state has its own constitution.
Yeah. Well, same here as well. Our states have their own constitution too. But we can't leave, even though the majority of West Australians would be quite happy to. One of the problems Western Australia has is we have more. We are one of the most primary resource-rich states in Australia. There's more money comes into this state per head of population than any other state, and most of that money goes to the eastern states in taxes, and very little of it comes back here.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of people over here would be. A lot of Northerners here would be quite happy to join Scotland and just be like, "Now we're now south of Scotland." Just fuck off.
Believe me, there'd be people like me on the south coast like begging for political asylum if you do as well. If that ever happened.
It's dreadful. Should we move away from politics?
I don't know. We're talking rather civilly.
We are talking very civilly.
I think we got into a lot of the stuff we ended up talking about on Ring Stream the other day.
That's the problem. We kind of have retaught stuff we were talking about with Ring the other day.
Yeah.
Because we got onto cancel culture and Me Too and stuff like that, which was a logical progression from where we started.
But I have a lot.
We've gone more into the politics, probably.
I have a lot of political opinions.
Ring and Brain Bug. I was not aware of that. That's fascinating. As many as 5 states. I'd be happy for Texas to leave as long as they bring NASA out of Houston and. And Texas no longer has anything to say about our textbooks for the rest of the country.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah. So, does anyone have anything else they wanted to bring up and talk about?
Yeah, chat. What do you want us to talk about?
What do you want us to talk about? So.
I wish I was born in Scotland.
You should.
Yeah.
Then you have a Scottish accent and I'd find it sexy.
I was only born there, Jenny. I wasn't. I didn't really. I've never really lived there, So
yeah, which is why Jeff doesn't have a sexy accent.
Well, I can tell you that there's a well-known YouTuber that you'd be aware of, Jenny, that actually lives in the town that is got very much an English accent, but lives in the town that I was born in Scotland.
Who's that?
Fight the Flat Earth.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to say.
Okay.
Craig.
Yep. I'm not really doxing because he's kind of openly said that, where he town he lives in, because he's
Craig is a lovely guy.
Yeah. Well, recently he realised that I knew something about Dunfermline because he was on about saying to Team Skeptic that he's got to get him over there, and I super chatted him saying, if you get Team Dunfermline, you've got to get him in the creepy wee pub. And Fight the Flat Earth marked out on that. He was like, someone knows Dunfermline. So,
Brainbug said, "Can we talk more about statue nipples?"
What are you for? Is Brainbug for or against cutting them off?
Yeah. So yeah. Well, how does the channel feel about the removal of
the penises?
how does the chat feel about the removal of genitalia from statues? I think we should stand against it. I think it is anti-statue. In the highest. This is what if the religious right lose the fight against trans people, which they will. They're going to lose it. Do you reckon they'll move on to statues next and fight for the desexualization of statues around the world?
Well,
I think they've done that in the past.
Investigators will be very interested in that, I think.
Yeah.
Since they believe that everyone in Hollywood is a transgender person.
At least Russian vids will have some more content for a few years.
Russian vids. What a case.
Yeah.
Well, you see, this statue is one of those statues that's definitely started off as a man. But if you get up really close, you can see the chisel marks in the groin.
See, I always loved the way it was Cheshire Vic handled Russian vids. And I hate to use this word when this around trans people. We asked her, like, are you a tranny? She says, yeah, but which way am I transitioning? And she just fucked with his head.
I do that frequently, where I'll just be like, yes, I'm non-binary. Now work out what my assigned gender at birth was before you make further comments.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of things about statues lately. I mean, like, statues being destroyed and things. How do people feel about that, actually? I mean, that happened this year with certain statues in the UK and the US being destroyed.
The ones that happened in the US in the recent months, in the last year or so, whatever. I'm not necessarily against, because a lot of those statues in the South of Confederate military personnel and politicians were put there specifically during the 50s, during the Jim Crow era, as a way to intimidate black people and to pronounce the superiority of the white race over everybody else. They weren't a statement of what are they calling it, Southern pride or something like that. They were flat out ways to intimidate people and to promote white supremacy, and those things. Yeah, those should go. Absolutely, those should go. Yeah. But I've seen people, and this is cancel culture took over. You know, that they're saying, well, you got to get rid of Abraham Lincoln because he said something once on some day in an afternoon conversation with the milkman. And so therefore we have to. I would Lincoln Memorial.
I would. Yeah, I get the, because I do think there's a lot of merit to the argument that Lincoln, in his own right, was a bit of a racist. But
relatively,
everyone back then?
Aggressive, no.
Yeah, not a lot, but it's nothing like it's nothing like putting up the blooming statues of people like bloody Nathan Bedford Forrest or something like that. You know,
I still have an issue with destroying art in the same way as I have issues with destroying books. These are works of art that people have created, regardless of the reasons they were created for. Now, I don't have a problem with taking them down from the direct public view.
Yeah, I don't have a problem putting them in a museum or something.
I'll put them in a museum and label them properly about what they were about.
Put them on privately owned lands, whatever.
I'm
That's
fine
actually
with that.
What I was going to say is I would actually be all for completely removing public statues if we're really going to have that boundary paradox conversation of, well, whose statues do we get rid of? I'm happy to get rid of pretty much all public statues and put them in private places. That's fine, especially if in the private places they have like plaques that explain what they actually fucking were.
And only have statues that aren't of actual extant people. So yeah, you can have gargoyles and you can have random person, but if they're a historical figure, you don't have them in public.
See, I feel like potentially even it should just be that like political figures shouldn't, but people that are like, artists or whatever might be more okay. And like war memorials and shit, I'm completely happy with them staying in public because that's
yeah. I mean, the town my dad lived in. There's a public statue up there of a footballer. So you know.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to say I have to agree with Ox in chat. Mount Rushmore is nothing but a kick in the groin to Native Americans.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yep. It should never have been made in the first place. That was a sacred site to the Native Americans in that area, and it got defaced by being
I've never
faced.
actually even seen a picture of Mount Rushmore. I've only ever seen cartoons of it.
Mount Rushmore, Mount Rushmore before the faces actually looks better.
Its intent was not to create a sacrilege upon Native Americans. You know, they didn't put it there because it was sacred land.
No, I agree.
It wasn't.
They did the typical white people thing where they didn't care about the Native Americans, and it certainly flies in the face of sacrosanct things for them. But you know, its intent was not to be that.
Yep.
No, but it shouldn't have happened in the first place. Is the point.
If we're going to talk about it, I think we should be aware of both sides on that.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying it was deliberately done to.
It wasn't a deliberate. It wasn't a deliberate slap in the face. I mean, it is a slap in the face, but it wasn't necessarily the intention.
Well, for me, that's where a lot of the legitimacy of whether or not things should be canceled. Is the intent behind them when they were established, you know, and promoted originally. You know, is Mark Twain a racist? Yeah, maybe. Does that mean we should stop reading his stuff? Of course not.
No, I mean,
you know, in his time, that was normal behavior. Was it good by our standards? No, of course not.
No.
Should you burn Mein Kampf? No.
So, I'm sorry, say again?
Should you burn Mein Kampf? No. Hitler's book.
No, because it's important to see how diseased mind thinks and comes up with its.
Yes, we've again wandered into territory that we were talking about on Ring Show.
Well, yeah, we've done it again. But it's like, I mean, like another good author, for example, and it's weird because he's like really, you know, he was the guy who's, you know, really sort of held up as a hero on the left. But you know, Jack London. I mean, the guy was a racist, but just to take away from the art he created and the great literature, not at all, you know. And he was actually very good on a lot of political issues, but he was a fucking racist, you know.
It's a bit like how I am quite happy to enjoy Lovecraftian horror and say fuck Lovecraft.
Yeah.
But then, okay, your comment on Jack London, I'm not going to judge it or anything, but isn't what we're doing to J.K. Rowling the same thing?
Yeah, but I don't agree with cancelling her books. I think people who burnt her. I think people who burnt her books are wrong. To be perfectly honest, if you liked the books are not the author. Yes, she wrote fiction. That you can complain. We can complain about her. Tear her down for her bad ideas and everything like that, and still appreciate the literature and still like to read it. Now, the question comes down to is, do you want to give her more money? And so do you want to buy new books? So my thing is, if you've never read Harry Potter and you want to know what it's all about, go and buy the book from a second-hand store, so not a single fucking penny goes to J.K. Rowling. Or go borrow it from a friend, or get it from a library.
Yeah.
Don't put money in the pockets of J.K. Rowling, but you can still appreciate the book. And if you've already got the book, don't burn it or destroy it. If you like it, you own that book. You own that story now. She gave it to the world, and you own it now.
Yeah. Problem was, obviously, because like, if we talk about like, you know, problematic artists, you know, that people should listen to some of the fucking bands that I listen to. There's so many of them who are problematic on so many levels, but I fucking enjoy their music. I enjoy Norwegian black metal. I love it, but most of those bands, there's some serious fucking issues with a lot of them. You know?
Oh yeah, I mean, like look at even Dire Straits. Some of their songs have problematic shit in them, but it's good music.
Yeah.
I
just got to stop because I'm going to take a break in a second. But I just got to say, I'm amazed that we've managed to get Norwegian black metal and Dire Straits into the same sort of sentence here. That has never been done ever, I think.
Here you go. What about the visual artist Robert Mapplethorpe and the works that he did? Was it the Reagan administration for giving it a time setting that were widely criticized as being far too sexual and promoted promiscuity and all that kind of Republican crap, and were banned largely because people in the government didn't want to see federal money going to an art program that would pronounce or promote that. The repercussion being the complete attacks on the National Arts Council and public television because of it in America. So where do we take this?
I
don't know.
It's one of those things that the things that we want to cancel and the laws we want to make to control what people say and do and what they get access to have changed over time as well, because we evolve as a society, so things are going to change for us regardless.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a good thing, because if societies didn't evolve, we wouldn't have gay marriage, we wouldn't have, hopefully, eventually good reforms for trans people, etc., etc. So you need that evolving society. But you've also got to be vigilant that the way that the society evolves is for the betterment of the society, and you're not going backwards, or you're not taking steps in a direction that are going to have a big negative impact on the society. So things have to be for the betterment of society as a whole, and for the people, and thus for the people within it. And that's why you end up with arguments like the stupid TERFs have against trans people, because that they legitimately think that having trans people in toilets is bad for society.
They don't legitimately think that. They genuinely think that. It's not a legitimate thought. It's a genuine thought.
Yes.
I will not legitimate anything that they say, but
they're all illegitimate. Yeah. There was something I was going to bring up. My brain. My brain's been slipping. Oh God, what was it? Talk amongst yourselves.
See, I find it quite funny the amount of things I see that are online that are such a political group is scary.
Yeah.
When it's like, I regularly sit around and have conversations with anarchists and communists, and it's not that scary.
Yeah. Unless they're violent.
Yeah, unless they're violent. And honestly, I've actually never met a violent communist.
To be more honest, you're more likely to get... I think you're actually more likely to come across a violent right-winger.
Oh, easily. Most right-wingers I've met are violent. And that's not necessarily violent in the would murder way, but more are violent in the should bring back the death penalty way.
Does it amaze you guys that when, especially if you're talking to well, I prefer not to talk to them if I can avoid it, but occasionally have to. If you're talking to a TERF, how they'll go, but I'm left wing. No, you're not.
What?
Oh, see, my favourite is when liberals say they're left wing. It's like, you're still a capitalist, my friend.
Yeah.
Left wing does not mean the absence of capitalism. Left wing means the absence of social discrimination and anti-progressive existence. Capitalism is a part of that, but it's not purely that.
Well, yeah, but it's more the fact that economically left wing.
Look, I have been liberal all my life. Just because you want to see it as strictly financial doesn't mean that you can take away what I have been and fought for the last 50 years. Okay?
Okay, so that's where the thing is coming in, that I'm referring to liberals I have talked to who have said that economically they are left wing, and I should have been clearer on that.
Okay, I will accept that, but there is a left wing to capitalism and a right wing to capitalism.
But typically, liberals are not social Democrats, is the thing, and social democracy is more the left wing, of capitalism.
Actually, I think a lot of liberals are social democrats. They just don't know the theory well enough to see it in themselves and to promote it on the streets.
Well, that's because there's that fear of socialism.
Exactly.
And people go, oh, socialism, communism, oh, it's a dictatorship. But that's not true. That's not what socialism is. It's not even what communism is.
I do agree with you, Sammy, that we will never, ever see socialist policies coming out of the right wing. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So we don't disagree with most of that, but
liberalism
is not strictly financial.
And socially, it is fairly left. But in terms of financial, I see it as right, typically.
Well, again, there are left-wing capitalists and there are right-wing capitalists, and there's a big difference between them. For example, I'm a left-wing capitalist. I think a certain amount of profit is acceptable, but greed is not, and we need to find a way to balance that. I think there's a certain amount of truth to that. If you take away the profit motive, that you take away a lot of the incentive from people.
Is that true? I mean, I don't have a profit motive in doing YouTube, and yet I still like doing it because I like the benefit of the discussion with people. I like to entertain people, and I like to put my opinions across and share opinions with other people.
And I don't disagree with that.
So there's an element of personal growth that I think could drive society better than financial gain. If we could remove the financial.
Honestly, I think we're going to come to a point where financial gain breaks down.
Well, you already see it in lots of places. And you end up with stupid things like trickle-down economics, which never fucking works.
True, agreed. No one will deny that.
Yeah.
Okay, I have something to say to all of you. Off to the gulag with all of you.
Remember, it's left-wing politics and left-wing capitalism that created the New Deal, that created things like Social Security and worker protections and things like that.
It's like the British Labour Party. I think the best thing I've ever heard it described is a capitalist workers' party. Despite a lot of its sort of socialist rhetoric, it's never really been a socialist party. In the sense, it's not trying to get rid of capitalism. Its goal has always been to reform capitalism into something a bit less harsh. A bit of a softer form of capitalism that sort of shares wealth a bit more equally.
I would make the argument that social democracy is, in effect, because it is no different than socialism, at that point it might as well just be a socialistic society. Purely and simply because it is effectively the same. It's just you don't want to use that word.
I'm just sure we come right back into politics again.
We did, but it's a different avenue of politics. Let's aim to become a world like Star Trek. Where there are no credits, there's no money. People work for personal, for the personal gain of the betterment of themselves and the betterment of their society. That I think would be the ideal to aim for.
Politics are in everything. Politics is the interaction of humans. It's not the decided of right or left or any specific issue. It's the interaction of people in as individuals and groups. When I was a columnist in a car magazine, I was forbidden to discuss politics, which was to me insane because the automotive business and cars in particular have been a part of or a thing that politics has tried to regulate and deal with since the day the cars were invented. Cars are intimately involved with politics, but I wasn't ever allowed to talk about that.
Yeah, and that is a thing that a lot of people say, don't get involved in politics, but politics is just being human.
That politics
Really?
get involved with
Yeah.
you.
And my
You
column,
got
and my
an
column was
opinion on
definitely a
anything, you're being
capitalist venture
political,
because I got paid
Yeah.
$600 for 1,000 words.
Oh, we'll never
I mean-
we'll never have a society without politics. That's we might get
Honestly,
away
I
with getting rid of money, but we'll never get rid of politics.
If you got an opinion on anything, you're being political. You know.
Basically.
I'm of the opinion that we are approaching post scarcity. No, we're not anywhere near there yet, but we're approaching post scarcity, and when we do, we will very much become a politics based society.
My personal feeling is that the tenet that we've been broadcasting for decades and decades of never talk about politics or religion has done more to create the gap between us than anything else. And maybe if all this time we had been talking about these things, we would have realized all along our commonalities in philosophy, not our differences. So talk politics, babe.
Well, we've been going for nearly 2 hours, guys.
Yeah, I was looking to.
I'm thinking I might wind up soon, but I know you're looking for something in there, Jeff. So
Yeah, I know,
maybe I'll see. Sam, do you have any closing thoughts or anything you want to shill?
I've decided what my next video is going to be on. I have no idea when it's going to be coming out. Sometime in the next month. But I'm going to be discussing the fact that niche identities are not quirky. They're fucking exhausting.
Cool.
That'll be interesting. I'm going to enjoy hearing that.
That'd be awesome, Sam. You make good stuff.
But,
so if people aren't sub to Sam, please go and do that. I don't have links for Sam or Jenny in the description yet, but I'll add them later.
I was just going to say something to on what Sam just said about.
I can do Sam.
About when we get post scarcity. This is interesting because this was argued back in the 1950s that we were on the sort of threshold of that.
Ooh.
There was a man called Anthony Crossland. He was a big sort of figure within the Labour Party, sort of one of their leading. But he said this about a peaceful revolution had begun in which class conflict would be unthinkable. One cannot, and then he would go on to say, we stand on the threshold of mass abundance, and we shall turn our attention increasingly to other end in the long run. More important spheres of personal happiness, cultural endeavour, cultivation of leisure, beauty, grace, gaiety, excitement, more open air cafes. It was more. It hasn't seemed to be worked out that way.
No, I think it'll take hundreds of years to get there, but I think relatively speaking, within society, we're very close to it compared to how we've historically been.
We'll be all long dead before that ever happens.
Before post scarcity, yes.
We could talk about a future socialist society. It may happen one day. None of us are going to be around to see it.
Well, no, because you'd probably need a one world government to achieve that. I think you actually need a one world government to achieve post scarcity as well.
I think that's probable.
And I don't see it happening anytime soon. Not whilst we have the religious and cultural differences that we do across the world. And I quite like having some of those cultural differences. So it's going to be one of those things it's going to take a very long time.
It's gonna screw the World Cup up. I'll say that much.
Thanks for putting yours in, Jenny, because I didn't have it.
Never again. Thank you very much. That's very complimentary. Anytime somebody says learned, that means just a huge amount.
Yeah, and hi GSM and Chowder Hall. Sorry, you guys are late to the party.
Yeah, thanks never again.
Yeah.
And thanks never. Did you have any last thoughts, Jen?
Just that I'm right and the rest of you are wrong. That's all.
Anything you wanted to show? I believe there's talk that movie night will be on a bit earlier next Saturday.
Yeah, I hear it's going to be on like an hour earlier, but that time hasn't been fixed. So please pay attention. And I just want to throw out there for movie night. I know that it's really been all over the place. I don't get to make any of those decisions, and I'm not here to say it's good or bad. But the fact is that it has been changing a lot of times. It's been missed a few weeks because of Jess's awful work schedule that Walmart puts her through. But please stick with us. We'll figure things out better as we go along.
It's a great show, and once
a good show to have with some wonderful panelists, especially a guy like RJ. I think it's just a riot.
RJ's awesome.
I
will be back there eventually once I finish shifting.
Come on in and listen to the show once in a while. Friday nights, 10:30 Eastern.
Yeah. Go watch. I don't have a link. I'm sorry. And follow Jenny on Twitter, because then you'll find out when a movie night's happening anyway. And give her a coffee.
And for everybody, let's send some good vibes out to Critical Cripple Dave. He's
who we're feeling
under the weather, and he could use our positive energy.
Yeah, he could. Poor Dave.
Yeah, I don't know if he's doing his questions tonight or not, because I know he
No, he isn't. That's why I did this. Jeff.
Yeah. Tuesday he normally does it late night. So
no, he's not. That's why I did this.
Okay.
So, he said he's cancelling tonight's. So, your tonight one. So,
yeah.
I feel like some of the more random bits of this conversation have been filling in for the weirdness that is going to be missed by critical questions as well.
Yeah. Well, the idea was to have a bit of fun and talk about a few things. So, and I think we managed that. And I think we entertained people a little bit. They've certainly hung around, and we thank you so much to everybody who's been in the chat.
Well, hey, we're relieving our boredom as much. We're relieving our boredom as much, if anything. If we've helped to relieve some of yours, people watching,
that's a bonus.
We're happy.
And I got to have a whinge about the stupid UK's court system. And if anybody's wondering why an Australian is whinging about a court decision that's been made in the UK, because Australian courts refer to UK decisions quite often, so as a reference that can be held up in court as this passed there. So
you tend to follow our lead a bit on these things.
Way too often.
Chad,
Canada will have the same issues.
I would love to get you on the movie night panel.
Sorry,
you're just way too smart to not be on that panel.
I am. What, Jeff?
Think about it.
Jeff should come on. Yeah. He should. Although it's a really bad time for Jeff. You'll be in bed most of the time.
She said Chad should get on there.
Oh, Chad should.
No, I don't want Jeff on there.
Get on there. I will be, as I said, I will be back on there once I finish shifting.
And Jeff and Sam and a whole bunch of other people from Britain, but it's just an awful time for them.
What time did you say it was?
Like 3 or 4 in the morning.
It's about 3 in the morning our time, I think, normally. So.
3 in the morning's not late.
Yeah, you could probably drag Sam on, to be honest, Jen. You could probably drag Sam on at that time. Although it does tend to go for like 2 hours, so.
You think I'm ever in bed by 5?
Yeah, I know you are.
Well, look, all right, Sam, I'll put your name and keep an eye for this weekend. You might be asked to come on.
I've got one more day, then I'm sort of back to work. So because I've been locked down for the last month.
So what have you? So what have you got happening aside from going back to work, Jeff? Have you got anything on the?
Okay. I haven't set a time, but I'm guessing it'll probably be this Sunday, maybe, possibly in a sort of time slot that I normally do a Hissy. But I don't know, because I don't know what's happening with Ring. We don't quite know what's happening with Ring at the moment, or Media Musings, do we? So I'm sure he'll keep us up.
But Ring's in the chat, so he might tell us.
Hi, Ring.
At some point over this weekend, I said that probably I'll do it when. Most likely, I'll do it when in spot that Hissy and I normally do our thing. But I'm going to host a stream just because I can't go out and go on the piss for my birthday this year.
Yeah.
So I might as well go on YouTube and go on the piss.
What does go on the piss mean?
Fair enough.
Get drunk.
See,
Get around, get drunk.
Okay, so Rings just answered, and he's got still
now.
no word on when his work schedule is changing, so he's not sure. So just keep an eye on our posts and see if it's happening this weekend or not.
It'll be happening some point this weekend. I will do just a stream for my birthday's not until Monday, but I'll do a birthday stream on Saturday or Sunday, I suppose.
Why don't you pick the Saturday night? I will be away this weekend, so if people were expecting me to be doing a Stump Gen on Saturday, I probably will not because I'll be away. But I might be. Whilst I'm away, I won't be able to produce my own stream, but I could hop in on somebody else's depending on how busy I am. So, not a bad time for you to grab Jeff like you did last weekend.
I could always cover Stump Jen for you, except they'd be stumping me on questions like, what color is the sky?
Yeah. Why is the sky blue?
Wouldn't be quite as sophisticated.
I'm not going to be around this weekend for any stuff, unfortunately, because I am on keeping an eye on humans duty, and that will mean I will be awake until at least like 4 or 5 in the morning in the evenings trying to take care of the human.
Okay. Well, that's fair, Sam. I mean, like I said, I won't be streaming myself. I may jump on a few streams whilst I'm about.
I'm sorry to say, for some reason, TERFs is trending in the UK on Twitter.
Yeah, that would be because of that court decision.
That and Lush between the two of them.
That and Lush, yeah, unfortunately. Which we already discussed about at the beginning.
Yeah.
Aside from that, you probably catch me briefly on Six Pack this Friday. I don't think I'm going to be there for the whole thing. But if anybody's wondering, Amanda is going to be back on the show on Friday. So there'll be at least some estrogen there, keeping all the testosterone under control. And then next week during the week, I'm hoping to do a Stump Gen during daytime, like I normally do, and we'll probably do another round. I'll probably do another round table. I'm actually contemplating doing it later, like I did this one, or even a little bit later than that, so Jeff can still hop in. It just means I'll have a horrible night. That probably won't be next week because it'll be the week after because I'll still be away next week. So don't expect that from me next week.
Yeah, to be fair, it's going to be a bit weird for me trying to hop into streams during the week coming up because I'm going to be back to work. It's going to be the busy time of the year, so I can't say when I'm going to get finished.
My next big Stump Gen will not be next Saturday, but the Saturday after. One of my guests for that show is going to be Conspiracy Cats.
Oh, fun.
Awesome.
So nice.
That should be an awful lot of fun. So if you want to be one of the other people who hops in for that, you better put your hands up early. Because
I can't do it as good as Ring does it. I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah, it should be fun having Conspiracy Cats on and having a chat and stuff. And and I think during the week following that, possibly, I haven't set a date. I've got Scientist Mel coming on as well to do a stump.
Awesome,
another fun show. And Chad, I'm serious about getting you on movie night, so you do think about that, and I'll be in touch.
So once again, thank you to my guests. You are all absolutely awesome, and thank you to everybody in the chat. Was there anything else any of you wanted to add?
Nah, not me.
Popsicles are really tasty.
I guess happy first day of Advent. Enjoy your chocolate.
Welcome. Welcome. As I officially, I heard Fairy Tale of New York on the radio today. So officially, welcome to the season of insanity.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah, that's what it is. The season of insanity. Yeah.
Fuck Christmas.
I fucking hate Christmas. I don't give a shit when anyone says Christmas can suck a dick.
So in this festive season, I would just like to say, everybody, please please, please try not to choke on the Christmas carols. Bye, everyone.